Welcome to the Miniatures Paintbrush. Today we're going to talk about how to make a wet palette.
Today we're going to make a wet palette. The first thing about a wet palette is that you're going to need some kind of basin. Now I found this one from some shiitake mushrooms that I had for dinner the other night, which were absolutely delicious, without a doubt. Now, you can use this container here. This container here is from Oriental Food Place. I find it a bit deep for me, but the pros are that it has a cover and it's microwave safe and all that other good stuff. Unless you want to nuke something, if possible. I don't know if it's dishwasher safe. I don't think so. So I just stuck to this low profile. I like it. There are ridges in here that'll catch water and everything. And what you're going to do is you're going to take plain old, I have some paper towel that I am just going to measure out here. And there are two ways to do this. The first way is to measure it out if you want to be very specific. You could actually get a ruler and measure it out if you'd like to. I didn't do that here. What I kind of did was take a couple pieces and I kind of just laid it on top like that, upside down. There you go. And I drew around it. I took my gel pen and I just directly drew around it. So I can get an idea of how large I wanted to make the cushion, or I guess the absorbent part of my wet palette. Now this absorbent part is going to stay wet and it's going to keep your palette wet. So you want to be quite thick. Over here I only have 2 sheets just to show you the method. There it is. So then what you're going to want to do is grab yourself a nice sharp pair of scissors. I like these here. They're usually for clothing. Tailors use it. It's really awesome. I mean, it cuts like no other. So I'm going to start over here on the outside and kind of work my way towards that line there, being very, very careful. And this is the part of this that I'm not too crazy about, is to cut exactly the length that you need. So I can be very picky sometimes, but it is quite time consuming. But if this is not a problem for you, this is definitely the way to go, because it will fit exactly how you want it to fit, without ifs, ands, or buts. So while I'm cutting this off, I want to say that I'm really thinking about investing into a better microphone, as well as a better lighting system, like a daylight lighting system, so that the channel itself would definitely improve in quality. Now, I'm a newbie, so I'm going to probably make a lot of mistakes, but that's okay. As I said before in many other episodes, that I think that this is a journey, an adventure. I'm having fun every step of the way, so I'm not bogged down. However, I really do want to give you great content that you can follow along with, and I want the quality to be even better. And for you guys and for me myself, I kind of want to look at it and say, okay, so I started here and I want to get better. Sort of like my miniature painting. When you're painting a miniature, you always judge yourself on how you were the day before, not really like other people's work, because I look at the other people's work and I'm saying to myself, I can never do anything like that. Well, at first I used to say that. Now I say, well, I'm going to work up to that. And one day I'm going to be like that. Although a lot of the artists that I've heard about, they don't even think their work is that great, because they're always trying to improve. And as long as you're trying to improve, then you're ahead of the curve. Alright, so here I have this cut out and I'm fitting it in, and it's a little bit too large. This is the problem when it comes to cutting these things out. So you got to go back and forth, unless of course you measure it out and you have the exact measurements, which is what I didn't do, and I probably should have done in this case. So this is what you call dry fitting. Dry fitting is what you do with miniatures as well when you're building them. Kind of want to put the pieces together and see where they fall and where they align before you glue them. One of those measure twice, cut once thing. I did not do the cut once thing here, so it's a poor example. But that's okay. I mean, really, it's not really going to kill me to cut a little bit of paper towel, a little bit extra, just to get the exact fit that I want. Now, as far as expense is concerned, this is costing, I don't know, a couple of cents maybe. If you take a roll of paper towel and you divide it by like five sheets, how much does 5 sheets cost out of a roll of paper towel? Really? And, I mean, being that I paid for the shiitake mushrooms, the container came for free. Here's some parchment paper. Now, you don't want to use wax paper. Wax paper, it doesn't breathe. And what I'm saying that is that when you put the water in, the wax paper is not going to allow the water to come up and keep the paint wet. In fact, it'll separate the paint from the water. And you don't want that at all. So parchment paper, and the unique thing about parchment paper is that it seeps through. So this way, the water itself comes in contact with the paint, keeping the paint very, and I hate to say this because a lot of people do not like this word, moist. There, I said it. Now, with the parchment paper, it's a very, very similar technique as we just did, cutting out. However, I want to get a good sense of it, and parchment paper, you can cut it with the scissors, which I have attempted many of times. Here I am right now, cutting it with scissors, and trying to get like a really perfect cut is tough with the scissors. It gets all over the place. I try, wind up cutting the whole thing, but I come back and I use another methodology as well, which is using my hobby knife and that cutting mat down that you see, that green cutting mat, and kind of just cutting off sections until I get it right. I wanted to talk about what I've been doing lately. I finished a Toyota race car model, V88, which is pretty awesome, and I've been building that for on and off for 2 years. The decal work on that was completely intimidating, and I finally finished, which is it's always great to get an intimidating job done. And then my sister-in-law had asked me to do a nativity scene for her, which I'm going to use in up-and-coming videos on how to do zenithal highlighting. I'm also going to use Minotaur's ghost tints. I guess those are glazes. And I'm going to show you how to color those things in, and so you can get a nice old base coat that has transitions in it. Also, I'm going to do that zenithal highlighting, and I think zenithal is coming from the top, zenith, the word is from, and this is coming from an object's source lighting, being the baby in the middle of the nativity scene. And that light is radiating outwardly. So I'm just playing around with ghost tints, really. I've never used them before, so it was an opportunity to be like, okay, let's try, Yep, so here it is. I'm cutting with the X-Acto blade. Now you want to use a new X-Acto blade for this because if not, it can pill up and drag and rip, like it almost did right there. And you don't want to rip your parchment paper and start all over again. So here I am, just taking small bits off, dry fitting it till where I want it. And that's pretty cool. I don't know if I cut more than that, just a little bit maybe. I don't know. Alright, so that was one way to do it. You just put that on top and you can be done with it. And you got to add the distilled water on top of it. I like to use distilled water because I guess there's a lot of minerals in my tap water, and I don't want that showing up on the milkiness of the minerals to show up on my paint job. So I use the distilled water, which has no mineral deposits whatsoever. You can see I put quite a bit there. Yep. And I'm getting a feel for getting all the air bubbles out at the bottom there. Because if you leave the air bubbles on the bottom of these things, what you're going to do is encounter these hills and valleys on your palette, which I don't like, because then the paint kind of rolls. So here I am, a second way of adding paper towel to your wet palette is just fold it up. And if you really don't care, about how it's laying and you're not that particular, I mean, it's just fine to fold up what you need and kind of put it in there and be done with it. And it's a simple way, especially if you live in a very hot climate where these wet palettes have a tendency of like creating mold. You don't want that. That means you'll need to either get more shiitake mushrooms or portobello mushrooms or whatever mushrooms that the containers come in. I think it's portobello, the big ones, and start all over again, which means that you're eating a lot of mold, which is odd because there's a container that holds mold or fungus, and worried about getting mold. But there are several types of molds with spores, and you can get sick and all this other good stuff, so you don't want to avoid that. So here I folded this in and kind of just threw it in there and said, okay, whatever, dude, I'm just gonna put that in there, and this works fine as well. And look how quickly it did the second way. So there are two ways in which you can do that. Cut it exactly to it, or kind of just fold it and put it together. Now I'm going to put the parchment paper on top. There you go, just settling it in, and it's perfect. I mean, it serves its purpose, that's for sure. Now the thing about using this one and not using the Oriental kind of or Chinese food plate is that it does not come with a cover. Now I solved that issue with a cover by just putting it into a gallon, like a zip tight or Ziploc bag, and that's it. Pretty much try to get rid of the oxygen within there and as much as possible, and just fold it over, and it keeps awesomely well. And these things do not dry out and when they're put in the Ziploc bag, so it's perfect. It works really perfectly. And I'm going to use a wet palette in a lot of up-and-coming videos. So I just wanted to show you how I do it. And I'm not the first one to invent this. I'm not the inventor of the wet palette. But this is just a cheap and easy way to do it. And I do like the lower profile of using this one here. Quick and easy wet palette. Really take basically almost no time. And I love the fact that it was cents on the dollar to actually buy all this stuff and have multiple wet palettes. And that's pretty much it. Alrighty.
That was easy. Now here you have a wet palette that'll keep your paints all wet while you're doing any kind of project. Well, I hope this tip was helpful, and if you like this, give me a thumbs up. If you want to stay tuned for the next episodes, then just give that subscribe, and as always, share with others. It's the best thing you can do for my channel. Well, catch you next time on the Miniatures Paintbrush.